right, we got players only. You guys, now Jason's going to catch the ball, Josh is going to throw it, and Barrett, you're going to try to bring him down. I think it's going to be good.
They made me a believer. These two made me a believer.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to run the ball, run the damn ball. At this point, AJ said it. You got to get it to your weapons. You got to get to guys that can make big plays. And it's only going to open up more and more once we start doing that. You know, so I mean, how do you go about doing it? Do you have to change your whole mindset when you're, a guy like KP? Patula, the offensive coordinator?
You don't want to sacrifice your entire offense for one player to get him the ball. The defense will always dictate where you're going to go with the football. I always say play calling is about probability, not certainty. Why I say it is, if I'm going to get the coverage I expect, I'm going to complete a pass to you every single time. But once the ball is snapped, that coverage may change. So it's going to be much more difficult. So when I think about getting the ball to one guy, you never want to force the football. If they're playing a too deep shell, linebackers playing off, walked out, run the ball all damn day. Then I'm with you 100%. But if they're loading the box and they got you outnumbered in the box, all we're going to do, drop back and throw it because you got one-on-one on the outside. So it's easy to say, do this, but at the end of the day, the defense predicates what you're going to do, either run the football or throw it or who to throw it to.
Yeah, I agree with that. However, I believe that A.J. Brown is the exception. The reason I say that is because in the game, you're going to have even looks, meaning there's going to be mirror routes on both sides. And I saw that today. And Jalen sometimes will go to Jahan Dotson on an out route when there was an opportunity to get the ball to A.J. Brown on a mirror route. That should never happen. If everything is equal, I'm going to my best player. And also, there's times to get the ball to A.J. Brown at the snap. As soon as the ball is snapped, A.J. Brown get the ball on the screen or something like that. Get the ball into his hands. I thought he said something very powerful there. He had a sluggo route on Emmanuel Forbes, one of the 38-yard gain that kind of opened it up for him as a sluggo route, and he didn't see the ball. As a receiver, when you don't see the ball, some guys kind of shy away. But the Lions, the people that have the heart, they go and catch the sun and hope for the best. I'm not looking for an excuse to get out of it. I'm trying to make a play. Even if I look bad, I'm still going to go and try to catch the sun, and that's what he did. That talks about his heart rather than shying away and saying, you know what, I didn't see the ball. No.
Let me ask you this then. All right, as we go forward, does KP say, all right, we're going to throw the ball starting off the game, or we're going to run the ball? I mean, how do you negotiate that as a new play caller with a team that just opened up in the second half and scored all these points?
I think for our audience to understand, all the coaches are involved in play calling. They work 80, 90 hours a week developing a game plan. So running game is put in place by running the offensive linemen, the running backs, the wide receiver game, the wide receiver coaches. So it's not like they have just a hat on the sideline and, hey, let's try this play and see how this one works. No, everyone has input to the game plan, and they talk throughout the game. There are coaches up in the press box that's all doing with their computers and logging every single thing. So it's not just a grab bag to make a play. So I think when you talk about play calling, you go to the play that you think will work. Now, it always changes because the defense changes after you've called the play. So play calling is, again, very, very difficult science.
Is it I told you so by A.J.?
Yeah, I think so. I think A.J. should have did this on the field when he caught that touchdown. The old Freddie Mitchell. It's about time he threw me the ball. Look what happened. Good things happen when you give A.J. Brown the ball. Get it to him.
Back to you, Mike.
Guess what? He didn't make that catch. He said God made it. I just took a catch away. He got 7.
I like to thank my
hands. The other one. I like to thank my hands. Let's go back to the podium. Here's head coach Nick Sirianni.
Devontae cited tempo as the reason why the offense went from not being effective in the first half to being very effective later. Why was that effective?
Tempo is something that is a weapon for us. Sometimes with tempo, it's hard to go tempo when field position wasn't great today. And again, when it looks like that on the field, look to nobody other than me. We didn't do a great job. I could have done a better job of adjusting faster on our kickoff return. And they got a weapon there with their kickoff coverage, and Sean knows that, and he does it. I've not been shy about me thinking Sean's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and they did a really good job on their kickoff. And so tempo sometimes is when you're backed up, when you're not being successful on first down, it's hard to get to on second down at times. I'm not saying you can't do it. We did it a couple times in the second half, but we've operated well out of tempo in the past. We've been pretty good on our 2-minute drives, which is obviously out of tempo, and that's something that that's a tool there for you every game, but especially when you're struggling. I thought Kevin did a good job of getting to that, and we did a good job as an offense getting to that and calling it from there. Obviously, the first half and really the first two possessions of the second half, offensively and defensively, it couldn't have went much worse. Now, we did a great job on defense, holding them to 3 points and keeping the game manageable, where if we just kept fighting and kept clawing, that we'd have a chance, and got some big stops there in the second half. But that was a weapon for us that we've operated well out of, and it worked well today in the second half.
Share a moment. What do you think will stick with you more? The first half, I'm sure you think there's some things you got to clean up, or that second half where you come back?
Yeah, I'll always remember this win. You're kind of similar to what you asked me about the Super Bowl. You'll always remember the good times there. I don't remember who asked me that, but you'll remember those good times there, and it'll be a good moment to remember that. I still remember the Buffalo game from 23, but we got a lot to clean up. And tomorrow, today we'll celebrate. Tomorrow, will be a normal Monday, right? It will be a normal Monday, and we'll get in there. We'll tell the truth to each other. And all in attempts to get better, because we have to get better. We know that, and there's a process to it. And so both, those downtime, hard times, when you're in hard times, tend to teach you even more than when you're in successful times. And so it was sure as heck hard in the first half. They came out ready to play. I know we came out ready to play. It just didn't, it didn't work what we were doing. And, but I'm so proud of the guys that the fight that they have. We're on the ground, and you can get counted out in those moments, like in boxing. But if you get up and keep fighting and keep swinging, in this game, you always got a chance. And I urge them in the locker room just to remember that, because you're going to go through hard times in life. You're going to go through hard times in football, and I just urge them to remember that when we're in another hard time. I urge them to remember that when they're in a hard time in their life, that you just keep getting up. And we got relentless guys in there, and we have relentless players. We have relentless coaches that just kept getting up. And when I think a lot of teams would have stayed down, and part of that is the success that we have. Big part of that is the guys that Howie brings in here, and the culture that we have. That we talk an awful lot about mental toughness and relentless effort, and there's something dangerous about a team that just doesn't stop coming after you, regardless of the circumstances. So, we got the win today on that, but I was proud of the guys that they just kept fighting. I'd have been proud of them if they made that last field goal as well, that they just kept fighting. Obviously, this is a better feeling. But we got a lot to clean up.
Share a moment with AJ in there. What was behind that, and then what changed for him in the second half?
Yeah, I think one thing is that you don't have to live your life and as a team, as a football team, the way people think you should respond. I watched A.J. Brown handle all your questions as a great teammate and with grace. Obviously, he wants the football. Obviously, he needs to get the football. Obviously, to do the things that we want to do, he's got to have the season that he's had the last couple years, the last 3 years when he's been second team All-Pro and went over 1,000 yards every time. That's the nature of the position. My nephew, I'm not going to get into that, but he had 2 touchdowns his first game catching, and then he hasn't had many catches since. And it's like, of course every receiver wants the football. Of course every receiver wants to get the football. And so it's just a great example of everybody wants immediate results, and we want immediate results, but there's a process to it. We don't have to live to what anybody else thinks except for what our standard is. And and I always respect your guys' questions, but, obviously he got asked a lot of questions this week where I've seen a lot of guys go a different way in that, and he handled every one of them that I saw with just so much grace, with so much maturity. And I know what someone's going to say, like, well, did he? And I'm like, yeah, he did. He said the right thing. Well, I know he wants the football, but he said the right things the entire week, and that's big for a team. Like, I'm just really proud of how he's handled, a slow start as far as stat-wise, but he's doing the right things with the ball without in his hands to help us find ways to win football games. And today we needed it with the ball in his hands. And so I just really think he handled it the way we want to handle things as a football team, where it's not about individuals. Like it's all over the place, right? Well, you're not getting yours. Well, we're a team. We find ways to win. Well, aren't you frustrated? Yeah. Obviously he wants the ball, but going back to work every single day, knowing that it's going to happen, right? And that's what a great example to kids all over the place, and as our football team, that just keep doing the things, keep going through the process, and good things will happen. And obviously that's not the case for everyone. We have really good players. We have really good coaches. And, our job is, again, a ton to clean up. But I just think that was a great example of you don't have to conform to what anyone else thinks, what anyone else asks or questions. Just, he's a great teammate through it all. And, we know how important part of offense he is.
How much was?
And so Nick Sirianni says tomorrow will be a normal Monday. We'll tell the truth to each other because we have to get better, and there's a process to it. And it will begin tomorrow after he says they celebrate just a little bit tonight. Here's our PGW MVP. Energy for all of us, and so much energy from Jalen Hurts today. First half, second half, two different ball games for Hurts. 4 for 8 versus 17 of 24, 209 second half passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and the rushing yards had a rushing touchdown. Here's Jalen Hurts at the podium.
What got the passing offense going in your mind?
We executed, and I think we played a good brand of football.
Do you think it was not being as conservative?
What's conservative?
AJ had mentioned that he felt like the offense could be a little more open.
They opened up in the second half.
What was the process like with adjustments in this game? How did that go down?
It was a matter of just figuring it out. I think, let me just set the pace here. When you look at a game like that, and you're able to find a way to win, we're gonna, point the fingers and point our attention to what's going on the offensive side of the ball, but we won the game. We were gritty in the game. We stayed together as a team. We did not quit. Nobody gave up. And in competitive sports, that's what it's about. And I'm very proud of that. I'm not proud of how we started the game. I'm not proud of the flow in which we played, the execution and the focus that we had earlier in the game. But I am proud of everybody not giving up and everybody being determined to find a way to win the game. And there wasn't a doubt in my mind that someone was going to make a play on that field goal, especially looking at those two Georgia guys lined up next to each other. And, win, lose, or draw, we were going to look back and be very critical of ourselves, and that's what we would be. And we're very eager to grow, as always, but there's a lot to learn from. A lot to learn from. A lot to learn from. You know, sometimes, and there's a lot to learn from. And I say you either win or you learn, right? But when you win and you feel like you got a lot to learn, you need to come on with the come on.
Did it help the offense to go up-tempo a little bit, go no huddle, especially after your first possession when you had to turn over?
I think it's important as offense in general to make it about what you do as an offense and not necessarily the opponent. There are a lot of great defenses, a lot of exotic looks you may get. There may be someone who chooses to attack us in a certain way, and it's about having the built-in things to respond to those things when they come, playing within the system, playing within your roles, playing within what you're coached to do, and making sure that we're coached to execute it in a advantageous and high-leverage way, but also just playing within ourselves. And I think in the second half, you know, when pressure was as high as it was, you know, we kind of just let it loose and went out there and played. And that's the brand of football we played along the years for a long time. So I don't necessarily want to make it harder than what it is. We just got to go out there and execute and play the style of football that we know we can play. And the beautiful part about it is we've been able to play and win in multiple ways, right? We've been able to play defensive games, play well on defense, and protect the ball and win games. We've been able to be very efficient and potent and have a lot of fireworks on offense over time and find ways to win games. We've been able to come back from very, very ugly situations. And it's a dangerous thing. And Coach Sirianni, I'll say, he talks about it's a dangerous thing when a group never gives up. And this group never gave up. And that's what I'm very proud of. And I think a win like this is encouraging, but it also lights a fire under everybody to strive for the level of execution that we want. You know, when we talk about playing for a standard, the standard isn't to produce or to have numbers or certain statistics. It's to execute whatever we're asked to do. And I don't think we did that in the first half. I think we kind of changed our approach in the second half, and that definitely helped us weather throughout the game and make plays the way we did. But it's about execution, you know, in this game. And the way I learned football from Coach Saban, it's about playing to a standard. We play to win. We also play to a standard. And so we can't lose sight of what that is, given all the things that we've been able to do over time.
Jalen, it seemed like on the broadcast you were very vocal with not only your teammates but defensively firing them up. How important was the collaboration with Kevin Patullo arriving together on what works best in the second half?
Well, it was a complete team effort, you know, and I had the reflection of whatever it takes. If it meant getting out of character, you know, given the situation and just trying to do it, because it's the only thing that we ever cared about out there, you know, go out there and find a way to win the game. And so there's a lot of passion on that field, a lot to learn from on the field, and I think we will, you know, it's always great to be able to navigate a way to find a win. And every week is completely different. We got a great challenge coming up this week, but this is very revealing about our team, you know, very revealing. A lot to learn from, obviously, but to be able to make plays when you need them the most, you know, there's no such thing as luck. You make your own luck.
There was a lot to learn from Jalen Hurts, and he said to get away with a win and still have a lot to learn from is certainly better than a loss and have a lot to learn from.
AJ said the same thing.
Yeah, so they're going to start learning tomorrow in the view of Nick Sirianni. But he said he had no doubt in my mind we were going to make a play on that field goal, especially looking at those Georgia guys lined up together. And they looked like they had something going on. But when you listen to him talk, and he quoted his former coach, Nick Saban, about it's playing to a standard. and that their standard may have been here at one point, and then it rose to here, and now it's here as champions, and they played to that standard because they got the win.
That's why we've been, bitching and complaining, because we're used to a certain way of playing. We're used to them being Super Bowl champ. We saw what happened in the Super Bowl, and then the past 2 games we've witnessed just weren't up to par for what we're used to seeing, and evidently it wasn't what they were used to seeing either. So, yes, in this third game, second half, we finally see a team that really is banding together now and exhausting every option of winning the game, and that's what they did just now.
And I think it's so hard for a Super Bowl champion to be 3-0 when, like you said earlier, everybody's gunning for you. You got that bullseye on your back. They played their biggest rival in the division to open. Openers are always weird. Then they played the defending AFC champs.
Right.
And they just played a team
in their house
where nobody ever goes in and wins. And then they just played a team that I think is a top 5 team in the NFL right now.
Absolutely.
Goes to the playoffs every year. They've been at 2 Super Bowls and won 1 under their coach. And they're 3-0 coming out of that, and they have not played a complete game yet. That tells you when they put it all together, they're going to be special.
Yeah, and you look at the last season plus, they're 19-3, and the 2 losses came early, and there was really just 1 loss. And then they ripped off what, 9, 10 in a row?
9 straight now.
9 straight, which is amazing.
In my playing days, I played for coaches that won close to 1,000 games. I played for really good coaches.
They lost 1,400.
I didn't.
You leave that out.
No, that is not true. Ruben's incorrect. Stat boy, you're incorrect on that one.
He's doing a little needle. Go ahead.
Wrong.
You got me off my track.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You play for coaches that have won 1,000 games.
Let it go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You threw him, man. Come on.